Alrighty, now that we're into 2018, it's time to reflect on the movies that we've seen from 2017. Now, I've gone through the top 10 movies of the year. It's time to go through the worst. Granted, some of these choices aren't necessarily bad, but among the movies that I saw, they just didn't stack up to the competition for me. So, with that said, let's begin. Number 5. Alien Covenant. Like I said before, some of these choices aren't going to be terrible, but Alien Covenant did not stack up to the competition. But while it was very good looking and the filmmaking in general was pretty well done, there were some interesting themes here and there, but with characters that make stupid decision after stupid decision, which in turn made the film fairly predictable. And aside from that, kind of boring, to be honest, a little bit slow paced. Some of the things that happen are just kind of irritating and you just don't care because you don't care about the characters. They're pretty uninteresting, and by the end of it kind of switches tones to like a different style of movie. It just kind of fell apart for me. It's just not the best movie. It's not the worst movie, but it's okay. Like, it's number 5 on my top worst movies of the year. Numero 4. I'm gonna have to go with Downsizing for number 4. This is because, while not the worst movie again, it's boring again with the uninteresting characters. The story, while somewhat interesting, the gimmick of everybody getting shrunken down to like save money and save resources and everything like that is pretty interesting. However, the problem lies in nothing really happening in the movie. You got the main character just walking around trying to figure himself out. And that leads to another problem that I had with the movie, is that it couldn't mesh its ideas and themes efficiently, as well as commit. Like, it would come up with an idea, and then it would just drop it and move on to the next idea. So it was kind of jumpy in that regard. It was boring and slow, but at the same time, in terms of a filmmaking aspect, it wasn't that bad. The acting was fine. Some of the characters are fine, most of the characters are boring and uninteresting, and while they did attempt to have character arcs or themes play throughout, it was just jarring how they would jump from one idea to another idea, from one theme to another theme. And in terms of the actual downsizing gimmick of the movie, they used that for more of a humor side of things, but even then, it seems like they just forget about it. So I can see somebody enjoying this movie. I just thought it was boring and pointless. Number 3. Mother. I hope I don't get a lot of hate for this, but I do need to be honest with this list. Now, Mother, while very well directed and for the most part very well acted, everything from a technical side was pretty well done. And I think that what most people will find enjoyable about this movie, which is the themes and metaphors, that is all it is. It is just a giant metaphor. It's not a movie. It's just a metaphor for things that happen, you know? And I don't want to go into too much detail because this is supposed to be spoiler free. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Lots of metaphorical stuff. But that's it. Like, the story is a lady walks around her house being annoyed at people walking into her house. Doesn't that sound entertaining? Well, no, it was not entertaining. In fact, I was very, very bored. And I think that the themes and metaphors were not that difficult to grasp. It didn't require me to wrap my head around it in any way. I was just irritated at things happening. Like, people would walk into the house and I'm like, oh, this is an irritating story. It's just annoying. If that's what the film was going for, then yay, you succeeded. That doesn't make a good movie. In fact, it just makes a pointless movie. The movie was pointless. It was just a big giant metaphor. And when that's all a film has going for it, why should you care? You need something there to anchor you in, to invest you into the metaphor, to make you care. And I think that is the biggest problem of this movie, is that I did not care. I just wanted something to happen that was more than what was happening. I wanted something to build, mostly from a story perspective, and I wanted the movie to make me care about what was happening. I did not give a crap about the mother, the father, the people coming into the house. I was like, okay, whatever, who cares? So it's a prime example of style over substance. When you have all of one and zero of another, it doesn't make for a great experience. And already not being a big fan of Jennifer Lawrence, watching her walk around the house being annoyed and screaming for half of the movie just added onto the annoyance that I had while watching this movie. Or should we just call it a giant visual metaphor? Number 2. The Mummy. How do you make a mummy movie this bad? Well, I'll tell you, do everything wrong. Most everything in this movie was bad. And I'll start with the characters. Boring, uninteresting characters, shallow characters, poorly acted characters. Though I will say toward the beginning I got a tiny sliver of hint of fun from Tom Cruise's character, but that quickly vanished as the film progressed. Next, we move on to the story. Wow, what a cluster F. Taking out all of the quote-unquote dark universe crap that they shoved into here, the whole mummy story in general was still not very good. It was still super messy. The mummy character wasn't very interesting. The whole backstory of her character was poorly done. And then you take that story and bring in Mr. Hyde and the dark universe. Ooh, we're building a universe here, and this is the movie that we're starting with, and this is how we're doing it. What have we done? So I do think that Mr. Hyde was actually pretty interesting. The story revolving around him was so unfocused and so detached from the whole mummy storyline. If it only just focused on just the mummy story, it would have been better, albeit not very much better, because when you move on to the actual filmmaking, especially the loads of exposition that Mr. Hyde gives in the beginning of the movie, it's so sloppy, and the action scenes were very sloppy. I think the plane crashing scene that was in the trailers, the entire trailer, was the best action scene in the movie, and actually a little bit intense, so there's that. But overall, it's a major waste of time. And number 1. Death Note. The biggest disappointment of the year for me. I don't know how you can take a concept and something that's already established and come up with something that is so terribly off. You start out with very shallow, uninteresting, and poorly written characters. You have a very sloppy story, inconsistent tones, and just an overall crappy movie. Now, if you go into this film without having seen the anime, you'd probably like it more than somebody who has seen the anime. With that being said, it's about 80% terrible and 20% okay to good. Now, if you have seen the anime, it's about 95% terrible and 5% of a little tiny bit of goodness. Because what it does is it takes interesting, layered characters from the anime, strips them down, takes all the depth out of them, and makes them into a high school CW drama character. All the characters are completely inconsistent. Most of the time Light is a moron, but then sometimes he's smart in very unbelievable and nonsensical ways. They make Elle seem like he's some sort of genius, but then he turns into an emotional freaking psychopath, which I do have to give props to the on-foot chase scene between Light and Elle. Very cool stuff, and I loved the score during that, but that also brings me to the score and tone. So they utilized music in this, which completely undermined the tone of the actual scene, which made it actually somewhat comical, or made you think, oh, is this supposed to be funny? But what is happening is not funny whatsoever. And it's like a very 80s score, so I don't know why they felt they need to do that. I love 80s music and all, but only if it fits. So maybe this should have been set in the 80s. So I'ma say the only saving graces to this movie is that chase scene and the fact that it's so bad that you can actually just watch it and have fun making fun of it. That's where most of the entertainment value comes from. So what'd you all think of my list? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your top 5 worst movies of 2017? Put that down in the comments. As always, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching and take it easy.